Today's author show and tell, we have award-winning author and Horror Writers Association president, John Palisano. Stick around. Welcome back to another author show and tell, everybody. I'm Gaby Triana. I'm the author of the Haunted Florida series, Moonchild, Wake the Hollow, Paradise Island, The Sam and Colby Story, and more. If you're wondering why I'm walking around the neighborhood, you'll find out soon enough. I want to introduce John Palisano. He is the author of nonfiction, short fiction, poetry, and novels that have appeared in literary anthologies and magazines such as Cemetery Dance, Fangoria, Weird Tales, Space and Time, and many more. He's won the Bram Stoker Award for Excellence in Short Fiction, and he's currently serving as the HWA president. So here to tell you a little bit more with his creative take on our author show and tell is John Palisano.
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to thank Gaby for inviting me to this awesome show. I'm a really big fan, and every episode I've seen I've really loved. It's a huge honor to be able to share something very special to me with everybody. When I was a very little boy, one of the first things I ever wanted to do was to write books like Judy Blume or Beverly Cleary. I always loved how I could carry something so small around that held such a magical world inside of it. As I grew up, my father and mother instilled a great love of reading in me. It was my parents who turned me on to Stephen King and Clive Barker and Anne Rice and many of the classical authors such as Shirley Jackson and J.D. Salinger and Ernest Hemingway. And of course the many great Gothic works such as those of the Bronte sisters and Mary Shelley and Daphne du Maurier and so many more. They also instilled in me a great love of music. My mother loved the 50s and doo-wop. Now, my father loved classical music, but he was also a hippie who marched for Martin Luther King, and he went to Woodstock. He told me his favorite artists were Carlos Santana and Jimi Hendrix. And sometimes I look at those pictures from Woodstock and wonder if my father is any of them. When he was alive, he looked at a lot of those pictures and was never able to see himself, but for me, a big part of him stays alive inside whenever I see those pictures or hear music from that weekend. Well, I was learning to read and write in middle school and making my own stories for the first time. I also started to learn music. I spent many a night under my grandmother's piano as she played while we were growing up, but the first instruments I tried were wind instruments such as recorder and saxophone. Neither went well for me. I took up guitar lessons soon after and had a cheap knockoff Strat I got for Christmas from one of the local Sam Goody stores. It wasn't until the following summer, though, until I found my own Excalibur. I'll never forget walking to the guitar store in my little hometown of Norwalk, Connecticut, and seeing the beaten-up old Telecaster hanging on the wall amongst all the shiny new Kramers and other 80s guitars. The Telecaster was considered old news. It was practically junk at the time, and this was right before the vintage guitar boom hit. It cost $450, and I worked an entire summer mowing lawns $5 at a time till I could finally afford it. And she's been with me ever since. So, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with writing? Well, for me, it literally goes hand in hand in my creative process. As I've written so much over the years, I've also written over 700 songs. Most of those were no good, but I learned how to tell a story in an efficient and disciplined manner, and it only helped in my fiction later on. As long as I remember, I also made music that accompanied my stories. Sometimes they were very simple compositions, but other times they became very complex. In my first published novel, Nerves, a good deal of the book has to do with a mysterious song that can help bring the brother's mum out of a dark trance. The song was a hit from a fictional R&B singer from the 60s who ends up traveling with the gang. To make this world as real as possible for me, I had to compose and write all the songs on that album, lyrics and music. Not only did I do that, but I also made full demos of each song. And that made them as real to me as any song as I ever heard on the radio. Music is also an integral part coming from the other direction of creativity for me as well. As life has become so increasingly noisy, I'll often start my writing time by picking up a guitar or some other instrument and start riffing and channeling until I can feel the psychological noise around me fade into a distant sound like waves on the ocean or the wind. This helps me to unlock that creative highway that looks inside all of us who are called to this path and road. Sometimes the music I create during these moments can be directly influenced or a part of the story I'm working on. Other times it doesn't seem to be related at all and just serves kind of like a bridge. Life has often become complicated, and like everybody else in the world, I've had my challenges. The first thing I've always grabbed and taken with me in an emergency has been this old guitar. Vintage collectors will scarf at the amount of damage it's seen. Most of the electronics and hardware have been replaced over the years for one reason or another. But she's an instrument in the true sense of the word. A kind of antenna that I'm lucky enough to work through, and then it works through me to help me catch those signals from the other sphere. And one of the best parts of playing is that you pretty much have a 1-to-1 ratio of whenever you're putting in coming right back to you. If you don't fully engage, it shows and you sound out of tune, and the sound you make can be anything but pleasant. You need to really connect and find that place inside you that's ready to receive what it has to offer. And that's a real gift. Thanks again for letting me show and tell with you, and whoever is watching this, I hope you may find a little bit of inspiration on your own path in finding your own treasures in this strange and beautiful world. Thanks so much. Until next time, be safe and keep creating. Thanks so much, Gaby, for having me on this awesome show.
John, that was really beautiful. Not only the way that you presented that, so artistic and just a different format, but it just reminded me how important it is to have a supportive family when you're a writer or a musician or any kind of creative person. I was recently watching a special, a documentary on Billie Eilish on Apple. And it just really hit home how important it is to have that kind of support, you know. My mother was not a creative person, neither was my father. They were both very matter of fact, business people, scientific people. And not that they didn't support my writing, they did, but I didn't have direction. And direction is so very important when you are in some sort of creative field. And Billie Eilish's parents, I feel that was just the best possible environment for her to grow up in. And you, with your parents being into the arts, that was really just a great petri dish for you, wasn't it? Just a great environment to grow in. I think it's fascinating that you've written so many songs and that you learned some discipline from music writing that translated over into your writing of fiction. I think so much of what we do creatively overlaps. People are often surprised when they find out that I used to make cakes, wedding cakes and sculpted cakes, in addition to all the books I've written. And, you know, they're not that different from each other. You have to really plan what you're doing. You have to be disciplined. You have to think ahead. And things change. What you start out with at the beginning may not be what you end up with, and you have to learn how to go with that process. And I think music taught you that as well. So anyway, really fantastic piece. Thank you so much. And guys, check him out. Check out John Palisano. His books are online. You can find them on Amazon. You can read all about them on Goodreads. And he's doing an amazing, amazing job running the Horror Writers Association. And I'm really looking forward to StokerCon in just a few weeks. So go check him out. It was awesome having you on the show today. I will see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.